3.5 million. This is the number of Nintendo Switch 2s sold in its first 4 days. For reference, the Nintendo Wii only sold around 1.3 million units in its first 4 days, and the Nintendo Switch 1 sold 1.5 million. The Switch 2 has sold more than both of those systems combined. But how is it selling so well? Why is it selling so well? Bubs, didn't you say you'd stop talking about the console wars? Kinda. Sorta. Not really. The Nintendo Switch was launched back in March 2017, which, yes, means that someone from the 19th century could have owned one. The Switch was conceived as a hybrid console, which means it could be played in both docked and handheld mode, as well as having these small-ass Joy-Con controllers that sold for almost $50 a piece. Despite this, the Switch was a worldwide success, becoming Nintendo's best-selling home console, and by 2023, the third best-selling game console of all time, only beaten by the PlayStation 2 and Nintendo DS, which isn't even a console, let's be candid with ourselves. So when it was announced that Nintendo would be releasing a follow-up console, people knew how it was going to go down. Internally at Nintendo, pre-production of its next console started shortly after the Switch's release, with a team reviewing the performance limitations of the Switch and identifying what hardware changes could be made to address them. However, there were some roadblocks along the way. Unlike the Wii U and 3DS beforehand, Nintendo wanted their next console to be a huge step forward hardware-wise. This proved to be an issue when it came to backwards compatibility with the Switch. I mean, what are they gonna do? Not have it play Switch games? That's like if I bought a toaster that couldn't take bread. When it came to the console design, the Joy-Cons were given a complete overhaul. While they might look similar at first glance, Nintendo included more rounding off of the corners and extended the shoulder buttons further towards the side of the controller. The HD Rumble feature was also improved and was more similar to that of one of those GameCube controllers, if you ever used one of those. In addition, they were connected to the system using magnetic connections instead of sliding on, which was originally tested on the first generation, but they determined it was, quote, too wobbly. Most of the features intended for the Switch 2 were tested with the Switch OLED, which prior to its release was simply referred to as the Switch Pro, which would honestly be a much better name, but I guess Nintendo just wanted to be different or something. But there is a catch to all of these awesome features being advertised. The Nintendo Switch 2 contains so much hardware that Nintendo thought, this seems like it would cost a lot of money, and it seems like we should make a lot of money off of that. So it retailed at $500, which to some was just insane. I mean, that was the original price that the PS5 launched for, and people were livid about that. So when the Nintendo Switch 2, which, while really powerful, but like pretty weak compared to the PS5, launched for the same original price, people were pretty mad, but that didn't stop them from buying it, because it instantly completely sold out. I mean, like, the stores, like, the waiting lines were, like, really long, and I think you can tell this part is unscripted. There was actually a boycott when the Switch 2 was first announced to be that price and launched. But that boycott didn't end up really following through, as was obvious, because I don't think the people boycotting know what a boycott means, because a majority of the people who are boycotting Nintendo, not buying their thing, aren't doing it because it's actually something that they're passionate about and they don't think this is fair. It's just because they can't afford it, and because they don't want to shell out $500, or don't have enough to shell out $500, they're using this as a way of, like, spreading a message or something about that. But that kind of defeats the purpose of what a boycott is. A boycott is typically when you give up something for the purpose of, like, protesting and activism that is kind of out of your way, or something that you normally would do. Take this, for example. Let's say I buy this shaving cream, and I use it every day. I've used it every day for, like, a year in this hypothetical. Every single day, I go up to the bathroom, pick up this shaving cream, and I use it to shave, you know. I don't think I have to go over that. But then, I find out that this company did some pretty bad stuff. I can't really think of anything right now, but let's say they use animals to test their products, and then they kill the animals afterwards. Let's just say that. So, this would be a good boycott if I was like, you know what, I use this every day, but I cannot stand the fact that they're treating animals like this. That's horrific. That's unethical. I don't want to support them. So I stopped using the shaving cream. And other people follow. They stop using the shaving cream until finally the company is like, you know what? People aren't using us. We've been losing money, so we're not gonna test on animals anymore. That's what happened with the Jimmy Fallon thing recently. See, whatever company owns Jimmy Kimmel, they were losing so much money that they were like, the only thing we really can do is bring this guy back. But the difference with the Switch 2 thing is that people were like, oh shoot, I really want this console, but I just don't have the money for it, so we're gonna be starting a boycott movement. That way, more people don't get it, and they bring the price down. But again, it's not like they're going out of their way for that, or putting in any effort. They're just not buying the Switch 2 because they don't want to spend the money. Sorry, I went off on a little side tangent there. But keep in mind, I'm not trying to make fun of anyone here. I totally get the frustrations. I mean, $500 for a console, like, in general is kind of ridiculous. But for a console that, realistically, while good, isn't too much different from the Switch, aside from, like, specs and, like, a few new features, like the Joy-Cons, I mean, that is a little ridiculous. I mean, I'll give them credit. Having that, like, being, like, super excited for a console, and then finding out, oh, shoot, I can't get this. $500 for just the console, then I'll need a controller, probably the Switch 2 Pro controller, which is, like, another $100, then a game or two, which is, like, another $100 pretty much, and then I'll probably need another controller because, you know, a friend or whatever. $200. You're gonna end up spending $1,000 on Nintendo Switch 2, which I think we can all agree is kind of ridiculous. You know, as good as this console may be, maybe, I don't know, I don't really know a lot about it, but as good as it might be, that price point is just not realistic for most people, or at least that's what the public perception was, because as I've said, this is on track to be Nintendo's best-selling console of all time, so I guess they beat the odds in that regard. But please, Nintendo, if you're not gonna lower the prices of these things, the least you can do is give it an actual good home menu. I mean, look how bland this thing is. Oh my god. I've seen smart refrigerators with a more distinct layout. What is this? There's no music, there's no good themes or colors, it's so bland. I mean, dude, Windows PCs, again, Windows PCs have more, like, naturally built-in theme and aesthetics than this. I know I'm using pretty bad terminology, but you know what I mean. Like, there's no music, there are no, like, fun colors, the way that you navigate, there are no transitions, it's just like, it's like a smartphone. You know, and I guess, like, for the first Switch, it was like, oh, this sucks, but guess I'm gonna have to stay with it. But, like, Switch 2, it's been 8 years, it's been 8 years, they've seen how much people hate it, and they still didn't decide to upgrade that. That was, like, one of the biggest complaints. Same with the eShop, it's the same thing, no music. And have you heard the Nintendo eShop music that they had planned for the Switch 2 but ultimately scrapped? It's actually a banger. Like, genuinely. Listen to that song and tell me that it didn't deserve to be on the Nintendo Switch eShop. It's incredible. It's breathtaking. It's a sight to behold. I know it's not that good, but the fact that this is practically what Nintendo's known for. I mean, think of the GameCube. That had good music, despite how kind of uninspiring the home menu is pretty good for the GameCube, but it was kind of minimalistic, that's the word. Then came the Wii, which is actually renowned for how good its music is. You know, the Wii Shop channel, the Wii menus, just the individual Wii channel music. Freaking bangers all around, dude. People sleep to that kind of stuff. Then the Wii U, which I know isn't known as a great console, but the music still slapped, especially the eShop. And then the Switch 2, the Switch came along, which, yeah, I'd say is probably Nintendo's best console. I'd probably get some flack for that. But they had so much potential here that they just squandered. I think it's because they wanted to make it more, like, versatile to a wider audience. But, like, Xbox Series X, that is the home menu. PS5, that has one. That has music. That has customizability. That has a layout. That has transitions and stuff. So I just don't see why Nintendo, who's known for that kind of stuff, can't do it, while the other guys can. Anyway, subscribe.